Hello everyone, it's Bill Nye the Science Guy, and this video is talking about the failure of Bungie and specifically what's happened to Bungie over the years and why the studio has just been struggling so much recently, and how it's affected their games that they've made and the different projects they've been working on. And this whole video is basically going to dive into a bunch of those different topics and points, and we're just going to go from there. Completely no script as well, by the way. I'm kind of going with this through my own personal thoughts, but I do have a few stats and figures out there that should be able to help land these points a little better. So let's start with Bungie. Bungie is the studio that brought us Halo, Destiny 2 and Destiny, and Marathon, which is the recent release that has come out in the last year, or this year, sorry. And there's been a few questions as to, Marathon and why did it release in the first place? Did anyone really ask for that sort of game? And the answer is no, not really. We still also don't know what's going on with gummy bears, but on the side of Marathon, no one really wanted it to come out in the first place. I think most people were playing Destiny 2 at the time, and we're expecting there to be something related to Destiny 3, maybe a little teaser or something like that. But no, it was completely unrelated. It was a game that was supposed to fight Arc Raiders in terms of challenging the genre of extraction shooters. But at the same time, when it did release, the full release, I'm not talking about the alpha, when the full release came, people were saying, oh, it's not really a competitor to Arc Raiders because it's very different. Similar to the Destiny 2 Warframe argument, but we'll let it slide for now. And as we've seen throughout the last few months of Marathon's release, the numbers have dropped quite significantly. Where Steam is the main player base for Marathon, surprisingly, even though it's a game that's got the backup by Sony, which is a console studio, it's actually got more Steam numbers. That's been discovered by Paul Tassi and his articles and sources, so all the evidence goes to there. And the Steam numbers themselves haven't been doing great. I think the game is under 20k now, or somewhere around 10k in terms of players. And it's just been really sad to see the game fall off. But at the same time, I kind of understand why it's happened. It's mainly, the game's not casual, it's very hardcore. But there is those few hardcore players that will be staying there for a while. To them, they like the game. They like the hardcore nature of Marathon. They like the extraction shooters. They maybe think it's better than Arc Raiders. Maybe they like the ability potential of it, and that's why they like Marathon. But the numbers do speak for themselves. I mean, a huge chunk of Marathon's players just fell off. And Marathon didn't even land with, I think, 100k players on Steam. It landed with less than that. And it's just been dropping ever since. And I don't know if Marathon is a game that can sustain itself for so long to make Sony happy, because a huge amount of money was invested into Bungie. I think it was like 2.4 billion, somewhere around there. A huge chunk of that money, I assume, did also go into Destiny, but I'm guessing also a lot of it went into Marathon. And for Marathon to recoup 2-point-something billion is kind of unbelievable. I don't think it's getting anywhere near those revenue targets. And to think of also the costs of staff and stuff like that, and the resources and the engines you're using, it just doesn't seem like a game that's going to hit that 2-point-something billion. If it had very negative sort of reviews on online platforms, on Twitter, on like YouTube reviews and stuff like that, it's very unlikely that the game is going to be hitting those high revenue targets with just those sort of a few months of impressions and online opinions that have come out recently. So it's something to think about. Is Marathon going to be successful in the future? Was this a bit of a wasted project? Could Bungie have done something different with it? Maybe, yeah, but we will never know because it's never happened. And we can only guess and get angry at ourselves, but it's up to Bungie to make the games, and ultimately we're sort of a voiceless voice in Bungie's ear that they just choose not to listen to, which is actually a great segue into the next area of discussion, which is, does Bungie listen completely to us? And it's a very interesting thing to talk about. You know, we have our own personal ideas as a community on what should be added to games like Destiny 2 or Destiny and all the old Halo games that came before, but I'm specifically going to be talking about Destiny 2 because it's one of the most recent Bungie games that's come out that they've been mainly working on for the last few years. So in terms of Destiny 2, we've been saying a lot on what things we like and what things we don't like, and how Bungie has responded to that community feedback. And, you know, people like DMG, the community managers, and the people who work at Bungie, you know, they say they hear us or we're listening. And we've heard that don't over-deliver or something along those lines, where you set expectations too high, and then when you don't hit those expectations, it makes the community angry or something along those lines, which was bullshit quotes, but it was absolutely crazy thinking back then to over-deliver. And it was one of the craziest things that a Bungie spokesman has ever said, and it's been memed on ever since. But talking about the community feedback and them not really listening to the community, you know, we've had things like the portal that's recently come out, or I say in the last year it's come out, and ultimately there was no sort of community involvement in any of these features that Bungie was adding. It was impossible for us to know if it was going to be successful in any way, but Bungie still decided to put resources into this feature and they released it to the public. And now we see after a year later how that sort of impacted Destiny 2 as a whole, and how that's shaping Destiny 2 for the future, which doesn't look bright. I'll tell you that right now. It doesn't look good. For me, it's always interesting as to why Bungie has never really done community voting or involved the community in a way to be able to get them to be a part of more bigger decision making. I feel like as a studio, it would make more sense. The people who are playing your game constantly 24/7, they have great knowledge and great playtime of the game, and they should know exactly what is wrong, what they like, what they don't like, what they would want added to help mitigate these problems. They know your product the best. Why would you choose not to listen to them and instead do your own sort of thing? It just doesn't make any sense from any business perspective you look at it. It's stupid. It really is. You're not choosing to listen to your customer, and that's making you fail because you're choosing to do your own thing instead. And you wonder why we're not hitting revenue targets, or why do people not like our product? Well, it's because you're not listening. That's just sort of the main thing here. You're not listening to your community. You're not getting them involved. The release of Iron Banner recently has been atrocious. I mean, they had something around 200 days to look into Iron Banner, and they never really did. They, I think, released one new weapon, and that weapon is hard to get, and that's it. There's nothing else to it. I mean, Iron Banner has just come out at, honestly, such a life-saving moment, but it's just so bad. Why did it release like this? That's something I just don't understand. It's not related to the community as a sense, but when you make Iron Banner be delayed for that long, you would expect to, you know, see maybe a few new weapons, not just one new weapon. I mean, that's just really lazy. I don't know how to say it in any different ways. I'm just so disappointed in how they've dealt with this event, how they dealt with, like, Guardian Games has been so mid. Every time they release an event, it's mid. And the way they've dealt with Iron Banner has just been so bad, and they had so much time to look into it. I'll go into layoffs in a moment because I feel like that kind of played a part into this sort of disaster that's been happening this year for Bungie. But I'm just really astonished with how a studio is able to have so much time and effort to just go to waste. I don't know if it's because they're mainly focusing on the thing in June, but they are slipping on so many different parts of this game recently that it's making me starting to lose more and more hope into this studio and what they can do for Destiny. it's really disappointing. That's all I have to say. Now, a big thing that could have affected this whole disastrous year for Bungie could obviously have been the layoffs that happened a few years ago, where you had one in 2023 and then another one in 2024, and then Sony also took a few of Bungie's people in July of 2024, where the total number stems around over 300 employees laid off, which accumulates to around 40% of Bungie's studio. This number is crazy. 40% of Bungie's studio got laid off in the last few years because of disasters like Lightfall, and if I'm not mistaken, there may be a few more layoffs happening potentially this year, because if June comes around and it's disastrous, whatever comes out, Shadow and Order, it's not going to look good for Bungie. I'm sorry. There's probably going to be more layoffs, and when those layoffs come, I think it's the end of them, to be honest. I don't see Marathon growing enough to be able to sustain billions. It's nowhere near as successful as Destiny as a series. And once again, and I'm just thinking why they couldn't have just put more into Destiny 3. From what I hear from people and on YouTube and Twitter, people who have played Destiny 1 would love to return and play Destiny 3. That's from what I've heard. Obviously, we've played Destiny 2 for a while, we know what Bungie's capable of, and that may sway our decision to say, well, if Bungie has just been doing this to Destiny 2 and they suck at it, why would they do better at Destiny 3? I get that argument and I understand. But from what I'm hearing from people who have played Destiny 1, they would love to return to Destiny 3. They miss Destiny 1. They want to see it get improvements and things like that. And that's what they'd love to see at Destiny 3. I get that as well. There's two sides of the argument that I completely agree with and I completely understand. And it's hard to say if Destiny 3 is even going to be successful in the first place, because I don't even know if it's going to be in development. They say it's in, or there's sources out there that say it's in really early development, but resources are just really thin right now. And, you know, you've got people working on Marathon, you've got people trying to work on the June thing on Destiny 2, and then, I don't know, what, you've got 10 employees working on Destiny 3? Like, resources are being split so weirdly, and I'm also not sure if Sony is asking for more, in terms of, like, I don't even know what's going on with gummy bears as well. I don't know if that project's been cancelled or what. I don't know if Sony is, like, grabbing employees as well, taking them into the Sony studios. I'm not sure exactly what's going on with Sony and Bungie, because I'm not part of their crew. I don't know what's going on in their dev teams and how they're speaking with each other. But it's going to be a very big test for Bungie in June. For if they are unsuccessful at giving us hype, at bringing us really good content, then I'm sorry, it's just going to fail. That at that point, it's absolutely solidified. The decision to do nothing until June is a stupid decision. Not even a teaser, nothing. I'm not even going to say anything because I feel like there should be a state of the game as well. But that's a whole discussion for another time. And they're probably not going to do this until June, or they're probably never going to do a state of the game anyway. I don't know what's going on there. It's not my decision. I think it's stupid. It's all Bungie's decision from here on out. And I mean, we just have to wait and see again. I keep saying this on every Destiny 2 video I've made so far in the last few weeks. We just have to wait and see, because they're just choosing not to communicate. They're choosing not to tease anything, not to say anything about the latest DLC that's going to come out. They're just not going to say anything. They're no teaser, nothing. And there's nothing we can do about it. We can complain all we want. Then you get threatened with, well, we're just going to communicate less because that's what DMG thinks is the best play. Shit talk the community. Even though we do shit talk on DMG sometimes, you can't say that being absolutely silent is the best play to make until June. It just makes no sense from any business point of view. The salt has been rubbed on the wound and it's already too late now. It's done. We just have to wait and see. Thank you for watching, guys. Please stay tuned for the next video. And of course, I will see you in the next one. Peace.